Check this out. This is what the Web.com tour looks like right now with Steph Curry on the course. Would the PGA be wise to get in on that? Also, LeBron James. Is he into Kyrie or Steph or Michael?
He should take up golf.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reale.
Start with football. Who will be the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts Week 1? Rumbling, Andrew Luck could start the year on the physically unable to perform list that was reported by Jason Luck at 4 this week. Luck's shoulder timeline really not known at this point. Bob Kravitz right here. Teams should get insurance in the name of Colin Kaepernick. Scott Tolzien, Philip Walker, Stephen Morris, the other QBs on roster. Jay, we'll start with you. Do the Colts need to pick up insurance for Andrew Luck?
Well, the question is, what are they insuring? And another way to put that is, what is their ceiling with Andrew Luck? That determines the level of panic, because last year they're essentially a 500 team with Andrew Luck as their starting quarterback. The year before that, he only played about half the season. Guess what? Matt Hasselbeck won more games as a starting quarterback for the Colts in 2015 than Andrew Luck did. So this goes beyond Luck. This is the entire state of the Colts roster right now. And then that determines whether or not you feel the need to rush Andrew Luck in. You feel the need to go outside to bring in another quarterback, because can you find a quarterback that's as good as Luck? But how good is Luck? How many wins is he going to lead you to if he's your starting
It seems like that second question is louder in your ear right now. How good is Andrew Luck? And it seems like there's pause from Adonde. Let's go to Tim Kalishaw.
I still think Andrew Luck is sort of Andrew Luck, but maybe he's not what we thought he was 2 or 3 years ago. And the injury concern, though, I think it's too soon to go out and get, whether it's Kaepernick or somebody else. The season's still 5 weeks away. What if he is playing and you're making all these moves? There's no certainty he's not going to start the season. But I agree with J.A. The Colts, I think, and these things can move around, obviously, but I think they're the third best team in the division after Houston and Tennessee. And that's with Luck, and that's with things going pretty well. If things start to fall apart or you don't have him, I don't think there's a backup quarterback out there that can rescue the Colts.
What was it, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? This team was looking like a team that could contend for the AFC Championship every year with Andrew Luck. Now they're not even sure they have Andrew Luck to start the season. How should Indy be viewing this, Isola?
I think they need to do something. If I'm Chuck Pagano, and if I have another year which I don't make the playoffs, remember 2 years ago, Andrew Luck, 7 games, they don't make the playoffs. Last year he played in 15, they don't make the playoffs. When you have a quarterback that's that talented, you're always in a win-now mode. To me, look at what happened last year with the Patriots with Garoppolo. He stepped in, did a very good job, kind of held the fort down. If I'm the Colts, if I'm Chuck Pagano, I want somebody, whether or not that's Kaepernick or fill in the blank, because I'm not even sure that Andrew Luck's going to be available by the second week, third week, maybe by week 6. I want to save this season. I'm doing something.
Since you brought it up, Kaepernick makes sense for you with Indianapolis?
Well, he's one of the better players available, so if he's available, go take him. I get it. It's America's heartland, and there's going to be some backlash from it. I understand all that. I think that'll go away in a couple of weeks, especially if he steps in and he starts winning.
Other available, we talked about this yesterday with Miami, and even Jay Cutler, I think, put his name out there for the Miami job. He'd say if they call, he's here for them. And, of course, Tony Romo, I think is another name that was out there yesterday for Miami. Jackie, I know you love hearing that. But how should Indy be viewing Luck and their quarterback position?
Well, Frank, you mentioned if I were Chuck Pagano, how would I feel? If I were Chuck Pagano and I know my job is on the line, I would have been asking long before now who my backup quarterback is. Long before now. That's why you mentioned the Patriots. They didn't just have Jimmy Garoppolo. They had Jacoby Brissett behind him. So they have all their ducks in a row. So to me, you knew that Luck had this surgery, which, by the way, I think has colored his abilities the last couple of seasons. I think you're going to see a different Andrew Luck now when he does come back healthy than some of those numbers you've seen in the past. But if I'm Pagano, I already wanted that backup quarterback much before now. Much before.
And of course, Garoppolo and Brissett. That's what we're going with New England. Yes. Donnie, last word after the horn.
Well, if Kaepernick is an issue because of his issues, quote unquote, let's not forget that the Colts kept on their roster a nose tackle who was accused and pleaded to a reduced sentence or reduced crime of stealing a golf cart and then going on this drunken homophobic rants when the police arrived. So if they can deal with that on the roster, they certainly could deal with Colin Kaepernick on the roster.
And Isola.
And remember something else. We got Cam Newton, who has been unable to really throw the ball that well. Now you have Andrew Luck, and this was a guy that everyone thought was going to be winning Super Bowls by now, and he's unable to throw the ball. So I wouldn't rush him in. He's taken a beating the last couple of years. You have to go out and get someone that you know is durable, can play until he's healthy enough to get back in.
What was that shade you just threw at Cam Newton? He's not really able to throw
his arm, his arm has been bothering him. He had surgery as well. We're talking about two young top quarterbacks, and both of them, the future is a little shaky right now.
Then there's the Dolphins, because when Tannehill's knee was checked out yesterday, the initial report was that it wasn't any worse after the fall than before, which sounds good, I guess, until you realize he already had a partial tear of his ACL and opted for the stem cell treatment over surgery this offseason, and falling untouched mid-scramble on the 7th day of camp, not so great to begin with. So, Tim, how should Tannehill want to play this? How should the Dolphins play this, which is probably the more pressing?
I think Tannehill's got to be very concerned and very cautious, and, you know, if it turns out to be what we think it might be, this could be a season he has to sit out. I still don't think the Dolphins need to panic. I think Jay Cutler is a panic move, even if Adam Gase feels like he knows him. He knows what he was like with a team he spent, you know, years with. He doesn't know what he's like after missing an entire offseason of workouts and expecting to be a broadcaster. And, frankly, Matt Moore's stats year after year when he plays, they're the same as Colin Kaepernick's. So, really, you need somebody behind Matt Moore as much as you need anything else if Kaepernick's not going to play.
Right, Solo.
Oh, come on, you can't be realistic right now that Tannehill's going to give you anything. This is a non-contact injury. The guy's just running, he pulls up lame, and it's a partially torn ACL. So I think he's headed for surgery. I'm not trying to play doctor here. So clearly, and once again, we're talking about a team that was a playoff team a year ago. So you need to go out, whether it's Cutler, whether it's Kaepernick, Tony Romo, you better call somebody up and try to get a player in there that can help you. Remember one thing about Cutler, when he did have Adam Gase as his head coach, or as his offensive coach, 21 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So he actually had a pretty good year.
What year was that? What year was that specifically?
2015.
Okay, all right. So it's not as far back as Kalishow was suggesting, but go ahead, Jackie McMullen.
Yeah, but here's the problem with that, Frank. What we hear through the media is if Cutler wants to come back, he wants to be paid like a starter, and he wants to be guaranteed to be a starter. You can't mess with the cap like that and bring him in for what would really be a stopgap situation. I'm more in line with Tim here. You need a backup for Matt Moore. Remember the hits that Matt Moore took? Oh, my goodness.
The playoff
He's
game?
the guy
Absolutely.
you need to protect. He's the guy. You're one step away from that. But I also want to go back to this team and the decision they made last December when he had a partially torn ACL. I'd like to know, and I'm not privy to this, whose idea was it to do stem cell therapy and not have the surgery right then and there? Wouldn't that have made
I've always wondered about this, and maybe some of you guys could shed some light. If you don't know the specifics, I would understand in this issue, but maybe other athletes, maybe even in other sports. Who makes the call here on whether they have the surgery or not? I would assume it's the player, but the team has to be part of this conversation. Is that not how it works, Jay?
Well, ultimately, the player does have a decision, and teams like to do everything they can to avoid the surgery, and that's what you saw with Cam Newton and the Panthers, and that they tried to program of rest and rehabilitation, saw how that went. It didn't progress enough. They wound up having to do the surgery. All it did was cost them time. So different player, different body part. I'm aware of all that, but perhaps they can learn from that lesson that maybe it's better to just go ahead and do the surgery, get it out of the way now, and then begin the rehabilitation process, and maybe he could be back sooner than you expect.
Frank, do you have a view of that when it comes down to, yeah, I think we'd all agree the player, it's his own body, he should be making the call here, but what's the role of the team in that decision?
Well, I think the team is trying to get him back on the field as quickly as possible. If they advised surgery last year, he probably should have had it. One thing about what Jackie said, you know, Jay Cutler has leverage. He's got a TV gig, and we know how easy TV can be. So it's not like if you're going to make me leave this cushy gig in TV to go play quarterback, I want starters money, and I want a guarantee. Unlike Kaepernick, Jay Cutler has leverage.
All right, TV easier for some than others, I think we can say, looking at the scores. Last word, Jackie McMullen.
Yeah, you know what? I want to push back on you, Jay, a little bit. You say teams usually don't want their players to have surgery. My experience has been the opposite of that, quite frankly, starting with Kevin Garnett. Remember Kevin Garnett and the knee issues he had? The Celtics had two different times where they wanted him to take care of that surgically. Kevin Garnett, afraid to go under the knife. It probably cost him a championship that he didn't do that.
All right, Tim, last word after the horn.
In both these questions about quarterbacks, I keep hearing this name Tony Romo thrown around. Let me just remind you, when he had a news conference 3 months ago to go to CBS, he said, if I was going to play this fall, all these things I'd have to be doing to get ready to play right now. Now we're 3 months later.
I think we were all just
he's in a fake TV booth. he's not going to play for somebody this year.
I think you make a fine point there, demonstrating how easy television is. All right, we'll move on, except for Dante. LeBron, is this the offseason that's breaking LeBron James? These workout videos, which I love and are hilarious. At this point, there's as many videos as Game of Thrones characters, and that's exactly what this is turning into. So this week, Michael Jordan took Kobe over LeBron, and Kawhi as the best two-way player in the game. Last week, it was Steph and Kyrie at the wedding. Of course, earlier this summer, Kyrie's trade request and how LeBron publicly processed that. Frank, who's LeBron talking to here?
You know what? He said last year, I'm chasing that ghost, number 23. It sounds like the ghost just scared him. Because this, to me, comes across as a guy that's angry that all offseason, whether it's Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, now Michael Jordan, of all people, they're going after LeBron James. It's amazing for a great player how many people come after him.
Yeah. So are you viewing this as a tongue-in-cheek fun episode, or are you saying he's got rabbit?
Oh, I think he means, well, there's two. Tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but I think it bothers him.
How about you, Jackie?
Don't poke the bear. LeBron is an angry bear right now, and I think it's directed at everybody, including everyone on this show, anyone that's going to question him. That's what the great players do. I always would have loved to have seen what Michael Jordan would have been like, what Magic Johnson would have been like, had they had social media at their hands, because I think Magic Johnson would have been tweeting every 5 seconds.
Oh, yeah?
Stuff just
We
like
read
this.
some of those Magic tweets. I don't know if that would have been... We'll leave it at that. Adonde, you were shaking your head no at the idea of Jordan tweeting, but go ahead.
Well, Jackie, Michael Jordan had to manufacture. He'd go out of his way to manufacture disrespect so that he could motivate himself.
Yeah,
LeBron,
okay.
it's everywhere you look.
Do you see this as a similar thing?
Anytime you turn on social media, yeah, there's somebody mocking him or dancing or whatever. But Tony, again, we can't call these workout videos if we never see him working out. We see him dancing and singing, and now
look at his muscles. He's working out. Come on, Jay. Last word of Kalisha.
I'm not too worried about poking the angry bear in August, because by January, the angry bear is going to want to hibernate and take a few days off and get some rest.
Especially against Memphis.
All right.
Make an extra.
James Harrison. Now that's a workout video.
I mean, the question, if you spend all your time talking about your critics saying they're not really affecting you, are they kind of affecting you if you're spending so much time doing it?
Yeah. They're keeping you from working out.
We've been on. We're taking a break. Buy ourselves next.
James Harrison.
Around the Horn is brought to you by the Dark Tower. Now playing.
Behind. Buy or sell.
NBA news of the day, non-workout video, Meek Mill karaoke division.
Hey, there you go.
Steve Ballmer freeing Doc Rivers of his front office duties for the Clippers. I like that. And buy or sell them to free two panelists of their work for the day. Lawrence Frank assumes the position. Jerry West is there too. Buy or sell this move, Jay. Doc's getting demoted here, right?
I have to sell it for Doc Rivers. While he'll still get paid the same as if he had both roles, so good for you there. But the problem is, with Lawrence Frank and Jerry West handling the executive duties, Doc Rivers is more, shall we say, easily replaceable. And as a coach, you'd have to say he's on the hot seat.
Kalisha?
I tried to tell all the panelists on this show getting rid of Vinny Del Negro was the answer to nothing, and it's been proven to be true.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's good for Doc Rivers. I think hardly any coach in any major sport in this country should worry about the GM duties. They ought to coach. They do a better job of it.
Frank, how do you view the offseason the Clippers have had? Losing Chris Paul, now bringing in West, and then this demotion here for Doc.
Well, Chris Paul said he wasn't going to resign there, so I think for them, I think they actually did pretty well, all things considered. But for Doc Rivers, it means more golf. Whether it means permanent golf sooner than later, we'll see. Lawrence Frank is his guy. Jerry West is now connected with the owner. This will be very interesting this season in L.A.
And, Jackie, your view of it?
Yeah, and so now this makes sense. But we were hearing rumblings a little bit about Doc Rivers and Orlando when that position was open some months back. Now we have a little better window as to why maybe that was going on. He and Lawrence Frank are one and the same, so he's still going to have a lot of input. He and Lawrence Frank think alike. They're going to have a lot of that. But this is not good for Doc. There's no way to spin it that it is.
Remember when Doc got the job? Because you had said there was no chance you could take 500 points away from me if he goes to L.A. Well, now he's still in L.A., but he's half there, I guess. So maybe you could get those points.
You're misremembering, Tony.
It's the all-time low score in Around the Horn history. I will love it forever. We'll move on. Buy or sell, too. Photos of Conor McGregor sparring with Paulie Malignaggi are out there, where it looks like McGregor put down Paulie from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and made his face swole. Paulie says They don't tell the real story, and he walked out of McGregor camp saying he came to spar, not be exploited. Don't just invent your own reality of things because it's how you wish it to be, buddy. He also said he would not disclose any information on how McGregor boxes, but did disclose a little bit there, don't you think, Timmy? What are you buying, what are you selling?
I'm selling the sparring partner, even if everything he says in those tweets is true. When you sign up to be a sparring partner, isn't your job to help the boxer, the fighter, whoever it is, not worry about what's on Instagram or what pictures are on Twitter? Seems a little thin-skinned.
How about you, Frankie?
The last guy from Bensonhurst to get into a fake fight was Ralph Cramden on the Honeymooners. I think this is all about a guy trying to throw a little bit of shade right now on a fight that, with all the hype going around at these ridiculous press conferences, and he's trying to say, you know what, Conor McGregor, even though you think he's going to win, got no chance because he didn't really knock him.
All right, well, let's cut to the chase here, Jackie. Okay, so there's these photos. Looks like, McGregor dropped somebody in sparring, and then the sparring partner says, nah, it wasn't really dropped. How are we supposed to process any of this?
Well, it's show business, right? That's what this is all about. This whole fight is a farce anyway. These aren't two boxers fighting. Everybody knows that. So why are we even having this discussion? And the sparring partner, Tim, he actually was a boxer at one time and apparently cares about his reputation.
No, he was a champ. I mean, we know Paulie. I mean, he was a champ, and he's a commentator right now.
Okay,
I think it's all right to have this conversation because this is fun, actually, though. I mean, take it away from what will happen in the ring, but talk about just the dynamic here, the sparring partner here, Jay.
Look, the dynamics, this whole thing just feels fugazi, doesn't it, Tony? I mean, we've got this stuff coming out of the sparring session. We had the lowest common denominator, all the racism and everything else that was involved in the press conference and the promotion. Everything about this fight just feels shady. That's why I will not be buying the fight.
Donnie, how did you know that ring was a fugazi? How did you know? Donnie Brasco, Jackie. Stay with me. We'll move on. Buy or sell three. Steph Curry is golfing. His first round at the Web.com tour was better than 11 pros. He had 3 birdies. He's on the course now. He won't make this cut, but look at the crowds. Web.com tour doesn't usually look like this. Frank, what do you think of the PGA thinks of this? And you think they're in any way, any part of their brain, considering letting Steph Curry or other celebrities maybe play on the main tour if they can hang like this?
Well, for one, I'd love to see somebody ask LeBron how he thinks he would do on the golf course. That'll drive him nuts. I do think it's something smart that the PGA should look into because look at the crowd that he's getting. But here's the thing. You have to get guys that can play a little bit, like Tim's buddy Tony Romo and, of course, Steph Curry. Don't just throw anybody out there.
Jackie, you saw him play, or at least, the video, what we just showed, and he was better than 11 pros. How do you view Curry on the course and what the PGA views of it?
Listen, I think Curry's for real. Suppose you gave him 8 months to actually be a golfer, and I realize that's not going to happen
Would the Warriors give him 8 months to practice? I don't think they would want that.
The rest of the league will.
He is legitimately a decent golfer. I actually played golf with 2 pros the day this was going on. They were checking their phones to see how Steph Curry was doing. They love the idea of him being part of their world. So,
Jay Donde.
At this level, though, Jackie, and yes, if he were to take 8 months off and become a full-time golfer, then yes, give him a shot at the PGA Tour. For now, this is the right place for him, just like the minor leagues were the right place for Tim Tebow and Michael Jordan. You shouldn't take away a top-level spot and opportunity.
Interesting you bring that up, because the Tebow part of it was more of people are having, they're making fun of that. People are upset that Tebow's getting coverage, but everybody was celebrating Curry here. Go ahead, Talia.
They already have these things called pro-ams, Tony, and they're frightening to watch because all these guys who think they're good really aren't good. As good as Steph Curry is, he didn't come close to making a Web.com tour cut. You want guys trying to do that on the PGA Tour?
Speaking of, time to get rid of the pro-am division, Adonde. So, weekend.
Jackie's got some life. TV.
Got to show Jackie. Show that next. Since the All-Star break, Aaron Judge, 164, 29 strikeouts in 19 games. Joe Girardi gave him the day off yesterday. Can a day off cure a slump, Tim?
I don't know. Is he going to give Matt Holliday the day off? Is he going to give Todd Frazier the day off? There's a lot of Yankees slumping. I mean, I think it can help a little, but I think people are crazy if they think Aaron Judge is going to be a 300 hitter for a long period of time.
So, but Tim, remember you're on this show. We were on this show a few weeks ago, and everybody's saying that he was the new face of baseball, that he's the great star. And I kept saying, it happens in baseball. People have slumps. Wait till he strikes out 21 times in a row. All right, I might not have said that, but my point
remains pretty close, though.
It's just a slump.
Just a slump. He can still be the face of baseball, even in a slump, but McMullen point. We'll move on. Cubs, Diamondbacks. We covered many, many rain delays in your careers, I'm sure. Where does this rank? Who won the dance-off? And what is the best rain day delay exhibition you've seen, Jackie?
Absolutely, the Diamondbacks, and I have seen a lot of good ones, including military personnel jumping on the top of the dugout at Fenway Park. But there's nothing that's going to beat that luge. That was as good as I've seen.
Rick Dempsey in the old days, going around the bases, doing all the stuff he did, got it started. The Cubs kind of scared me with those masks. I got to be honest. Some of those kind of frightened me. Not for kids.
Wow.
So I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks.
Scared you.
Bones getting the FaceTime.
So everybody grieves differently and in their own time, and Tennessee point guard Michelle Marciniak, who played for Pat Summitt, was having a hard time really coming to grips with Pat's death. Of course, Pat died over a year ago now, on June 28, 2016. Michelle wanted to find a way to honor her, and now she's found it. She was going to cycle 1,098 miles, 1 mile for every career win of Pat Summitt, an initiative called Pedal for Pat, from Knoxville to Key West, Florida. Anyone else that wants to join her, you can look at the Pat Summitt Foundation. Great for you, for Michelle, for honoring your coach in the most wonderful way I can imagine. Good for you.
Very good.
Michelle Marciniak, she gave the eulogy at Pat's funeral as well, which you can find online. It was a tremendous read. And I also look forward to a piece, ESPNW, between you and Michelle.
Remember, she went into labor in her house in Allentown, Pennsylvania.